For way too long, if you wanted yourself a new entry-level Volkswagen, your options revolved around things that weren't that new. While the rest of the world had moved on from the Golf Mark I, here in South Africa, Volkswagen kept peddling it as the City Golf in its many millions of varieties. And then when they finally killed it, their new entry-level car was the old Polo, itself an old Seat. Finally though, things have changed. Yes, brothers and sisters, today we rejoice because Volkswagen has finally and at last introduced an entry-level car that is in every way a brand new design. This is the Up. Competing against the likes of Peugeot's 107 and the Citroën C1, it's every bit as modern in its design and technology. It's also just as safe and just as appealing. It's just a bit more sensible. That's not to say it's not good looking, but by comparison to those other French cars I mentioned just now, it's a lot more designy. And that's probably because the styling was overseen by Walter de Silva, that most designy of people, responsible for, amongst other things, the Audi R8. The back of the Up is particularly nice, with its large slab of blacked-out glass that forms both the tailgate lid and the back window. The Up is available as a 4-door in international markets, but here we only get the 2-door in 2 spec levels. The smiley front end of the Up is an interesting consequence of the technology it currently uses and what it will use in future. Right now it packs a tiny petrol motor, but there are plans for a natural gas and an electric version as well, and none of those options requires large radiator gaps or cooling ducts. That means a simpler, cleaner front-end design. That petrol engine is a 1-litre 3-cylinder that's the only option in the lineup at the moment. Puts out 55 kilowatts, 95 newton meters, and is hooked up to a 5-speed manual gearbox. It's nothing special in that it's what you expect from that kind of motor, but it's still a solid little unit that pushes power out all the way to the red line, and it gets up to highway speed pretty easily. It's a slightly different story around town where you aren't going to want to push it to 6,000 RPM with every gear shift. But you do have to keep the revs up because the power only comes in above 2,000 RPM. The decent power band means once you're into the revs, it gets along just fine. Its other in-town talents include a tiny turning circle and an urban cycle fuel consumption figure of just under 6 litres per 100 kilometres, according to Volkswagen. But once you head out of town, you uncover a shortcoming of this car. It's not disastrous, but it does prove that the Up was designed first and foremost for city dwelling. On rougher tar surfaces at highway speeds, the Up's ride becomes noticeably intrusive, transmitting a lot of the bumps through to the cabin. The setup is otherwise fairly smooth, and thanks to those wheels being pushed out to each corner of the car, the handling is confident too. The cabin has a sort of good news, bad news feel to it as well. It is a brand new layout that's simple and ergonomic but still offers good comfort and decent practicality. The interior though is the only place that this car really shows off its entry-level status, with some hard plastics and a pretty cheap looking steering wheel. But to try divert your attention from that, Volkswagen have provided the option of a lot of toys. We're driving the higher of the 2 Up specs called Move, and over and above its standard stuff, things like electric mirrors and windows and aircon, VW have fitted just about every option you can fit to this car. The panoramic roof, the heated seats, cruise control and phone connectivity, operated by this rather cute touchscreen interface. All of that pushes this tiny car a bit beyond the entry level, but it's pretty impressive stuff, even at the price. Practicality comes in the form of a double-level boot floor, which is a decent size in this class, plus the split rear bench seat. Loading up our camera gear meant we had to push the front passenger seat further forward than we normally would have, but even then, the space was impressive. There is something about this car that I just don't get, and that's that Volkswagen are positioning it below the Polo Vivo, although there's almost nothing about it to point to its affordable price tag. It's modern, it's comfortable, it's even got a grown-up hooter. Not that a hooter is a reason to choose this car over anything else in its class. There are plenty of other reasons though. The interesting thing for me isn't how the Up is going to manage against its rivals, it's how its siblings are going to manage against it. For many years, the Volkswagen Polo Vivo was one of the best or the best-selling car in the country because it offered a VW badge with a good measure of drivability. But now, the Up takes those elements and adds modern styling, more tech, and a much better interior into a package that makes me think the Vivo's days are numbered. Because besides sacrificing a little bit of space, why wouldn't you want to spend your money on one of those? Another small city car to make use of a 3-cylinder motor, the Up packs decent power across the rev range. That motor and the 5-speed manual are the only drivetrain options. It's a modern-looking car with surprising space and a decent drive. Optional extras help distract from the hard plastics, and it's certainly a car that prefers the city to the open road.